All right, so in this video, I'm going to be outlining a method for rapidly achieving message market fit through cold outbound. So what I'm going to be going through in this video is a slightly adjusted method from an internal playbook at growsas.com. If you're an early stage B2B SaaS founder who wants to hit their first $1 million, then please book a call to learn more. You can just go to the website and we'll speak with you. So before I jump into it, just some proof that what I'm about to go through in this video actually works. So at the top, we just have a response from a prospect who kind of complimented us on our outbound campaigns. This campaign was 100% programmatically done with generative AI, just to kind of show this is actually about like quality as well. Just because you're using automation doesn't mean there's a lack of quality. A bunch of emails that have been sent. By now I've sent north of 1 million cold outbound emails. My first job in the SaaS industry was as an SDR. And then just in general, some of the startups we've helped through Grow SaaS and also my marketing agency. So here's Instantly AI. They bootstrapped from 0 to 20 million ARR in 3 years. They're an active client. I've been working with them for well over 2 years now. So when I first started working with them, they were at around the 40K MRR mark, low visibility into business metrics, no process for activation or retention, relying mainly on cold outbound and word of mouth. After, they're well above this number now, fixed their churn bottlenecks, helped them implement a repeatable growth engine. And also I took their paid media program from $0 a month to spending over $300,000 per month. That's in spend. So the revenue you'd like to think is much better than that. It is incredibly profitable campaigns. And here's a testimonial of one of the co-founders, Rayo, which you can watch, which will probably be a link in the description or something like that. Here's Henry from SEO Space. So before working with us, relying on his second business, his marketing agency, to fund his SaaS company, had a lack of systems and process, weak customer experience was causing churn. So the product activation was really causing some revenue leaks there. After the business was running on its own P&L, he actually 3x'd MRR growth. At the time of this, it's well beyond that now. It was just 3x MRR growth when we did this this client interview earlier this year. 40% reduction in churn and an actual business with systems and processes rather than a chaotic side hustle. Again, you can watch that interview of Henry. And then here's Flozy. So the co-founders, Iman Gadzi and Pierre. Before working with us, exclusively relying on Iman's personal brand. So I forget the number, but he has millions of subscribers. It might be in the tens of millions subscribers. So basically, Flozy was only growing when he posted content about it, which obviously presents a long-term business risk because, who wants to buy a company that only grows when the founder posts a YouTube video? They were attracting low-value customers that churned, typically like beginners who want to start their first business, and just had a broad value proposition. So we helped them narrow that down and diversify their growth channels. They made an extra $1 million in 6 months and helped them reposition the company for a higher value customer persona. Here's a little snippet from Salma, another founder we worked with at Creates. And then quick background about myself. So I've worked in the SaaS industry for the last 5 years. I've gone from in-house growth at a startup, started my own marketing consultancy and agency where I helped startups go from 0 to over $10 million in ARR. I've worked with dozens of startups over the last few years directly. Also, more recently, co-founder of growsas.com, where we help early stage B2B SaaS founders hit their first $1 million without having to raise external capital. Some of the companies we work with have raised small, like pre-seed, seed rounds, but for the most part, we work with bootstrap companies or very, very low funded companies. So we're not against raising capital. It's just the methodology that we implement inside SaaS startups is so you don't need to raise external capital. If you want to find out more about us, just go to the website. I'm not going to make this a pitch fest about Grow SaaS. Just some context though. So my business partner exited a software company for $2 million as a 21-year-old. Collectively, we have over 20,000 hours of first-hand industry experience. We're both building our own startups, our own SaaS startups. Startups from Y Combinator and SaaS Academy, which are kind of the household names, should we say, in the SaaS industry, come to us, because our methodology is based on what works right now, not what worked 5 to 10 years ago when money was free and, it was a seller's market and software was just selling like hotcakes, right? We focus on what works now, where the priority has gone from, raise a bunch of money, pour that into growth, because that's harder to do now, to efficiency, building a long-term sustainable business where you don't need to raise money if you don't have to. Now, truth be told, talking about this stuff makes me feel a bit cringe and like I'm bragging. I'm British. We like to be a bit more conservative, but I think, there's a lot of, it's easy to make claims, right? It's easy to post a video and say, hey, here's what you should do, but it's hard to back it up with receipts and say, hey, well, I've actually done this and, I've helped companies implement this into their business. So that's kind of why I wanted to talk through that stuff. So what we're going to be covering, what is message market fit and why does it matter? The state of cold email in 2024, just in general now. How to get clear on your company's positioning, how to create value propositions, how to turn them into offers and assets, how to experiment to find the best performing ones to ultimately achieve message market fit. And then I'll be summarizing it at the end for you. So I imagine this is going to be a relatively long video, so just stick with it or maybe return and come back. But I've packed this filled with information, good information. I've spent a lot of time putting this together. So this is how to do cold outbound in 2024. A quick note before we get started. So this is not a resource on how to set up cold email tools or infrastructure, or how to write effective cold emails, or like tactical execution, like say this, do that, or how to find leads. It is a resource on a method for solving message market fit, how to develop value propositions, how to turn them into offers and assets that are going to attract your ideal customers, and a method for testing those different value propositions and offers to ultimately achieve message market fit. Now, I have recorded a separate resource on basically all of that stuff, how to set up your infrastructure, how, some frameworks to write good cold emails, how to find leads, all of that kind of stuff, like the real tactical stuff of how to do cold email. I think that's a 2-hour video. So I'd recommend watching that after this. This video is really about message market fit with outbound, giving you the playbook of how to do that. So jumping in, I'm just going to take a sip. All right, because we might be here for a while. So what is message market fit and why does it matter? So product market fit is the goal for startups and the most common reason for failure. They are unable to build something the market wants and distribute it efficiently before running out of capital. But to solve product market fit isn't just like, it's a macro thing, right? And there's a bunch of micro things that sit underneath product market fit. And those things are, you must identify a market segment with problems to be solved. You must develop a value proposition that speaks to these problems. You must build a solution that effectively solves the problems and basically fulfills the claim you're making in your marketing. Otherwise, you're just going to have activation and churn problems. And then you must find a scalable marketing channel that can efficiently acquire new customers, right? So message market fit is these top 2 bits here, these top 2 micro things that lead up to product market fit. So it's the intersection between the first 2 variables, message and market, hence message market fit. So in simple terms, it's solved when you put the right message in front of the right group of people and achieve what's called message resonance, basically a fancy word for saying when you're speaking the same language as your target audience and the claims your company is making aligns with the needs of your target market. Now, I've worked with a lot of founders, a lot of SaaS companies. And I'd say basically every single time they have growth problems, whether they're not growing fast enough, whether growth has just completely stagnated, whether they just haven't been able to grow at all and they're really, really struggling. In all cases, it is due to these things. They've gone too broad, they've targeted too many market segments, and so therefore their value proposition isn't potent enough. It's kind of like it's doing an okay job for everyone, but never a great job for someone. They just haven't tweaked their value proposition enough to find what really resonates with the market. They haven't found that nerve. You really need to find those nerves. They've lacked on the product side, so that they're good marketers, but the product just isn't differentiated to other products in the market, and so therefore people are just going to their competitors. Or they're just not able to find that efficiency from a marketing and sales perspective. Every single time a company struggles to grow, it is due to these. Unless the founders have a breakup, then yeah, that's actually probably the biggest killer. But I haven't had to deal with that. So most times it's due to these 4 things, right? So although these are like 4 very succinct bullet points, like incredibly important, but I digress. So the difficulty of achieving message market fit is not to be underestimated, right? It can't be, and this is like a misconception. It can't be achieved by just like creating a really good headline, like a really good copywriting hack or gimmick, right? Copywriting is like the last mile. Copywriting is built on a good messaging strategy, and a good messaging strategy is built on a good positioning strategy, which is all like product marketing, right? So ignore people. You can't just solve this through like copywriting. There needs to be good foundations in place. You need to be differentiated, right? Because sure, like with good copywriting, you can get the clicks, you can get the sort of the front end conversions, like free trials, for example, or like low ticket offers, but you're just not going to be able to build a long-term sustainable business, right? And so when you're trying to solve message market fit in the moment, it really feels like you're being pulled in different directions, right? You're struggling with where to go. And this is, honestly, I think, just the life of a founder. You're just really struggling where to go. There's a lot of noise. You have like 5 different buyer personas who see value in your product. There's 10 different use cases that your product can fulfill, and you don't know which one to narrow down on. You don't know how to communicate your value proposition. Should you focus on this capability? Should you focus on this benefit? And like, how should you communicate that to the market? Like, this is really the struggle of message market fit, and it's not to be underestimated, right? This is completely normal. Everyone who achieves message market fit has to go through that. I call it the eat shit phase, where it's just there's a lot of noise, and it's really struggle to kind of make your way out of it. The enemy of message market fit is vague positioning and messaging that people struggle to understand, right? So if you're hearing these things or similar, it's a good indicator that you need to tweak it a bit, right? So like when people are constantly asking, well, what makes you different to product X or solution A, right? Which could just be another way of solving the problem that they have. Why should we choose you over competitor A? Well, you haven't positioned your product well, or it's not clear what you do, right? Well, your value proposition just hasn't been conveyed effectively enough to them, right? And so I personally believe that strong message market fit can be one of your biggest advantages due to how competitive the B2B SaaS industry has become, right? So it's just, I think starting a SaaS company is the easiest it has ever been, but successfully scaling a SaaS company, i.e. being able to reach product market fit, being able to build a sustainable long-term business that has, good flywheels in place, that's really, really tough, right? And so that's why I think good message market fit is more important than ever. It's not just about having the right features or product capabilities. It's about positioning yourself well in the market and having an attractive offer. And so rather than trying to compete head on with incumbent products by achieving feature parity, you can differentiate by solving a visceral problem for a smaller group of people and communicating it to them through unique points of views and offers, right? So, I speak with a lot of the founders I work with, they kind of just, to get started, and, I don't want to go too off topic here, but they sort of just build a product that's similar to competitors, which I don't think is a terrible strategy for the short term. Sometimes that's a good entry to the market. But, if your competitors have been around for years, they're going to have better case studies, better brand affinity. They're going to have more insights than you. And so, if your product looks exactly the same as them, sometimes even if you're cheaper, people are still going to go to your competitors, right? Because there's more trust there. And so with message market fit, with really strong message market fit, rather than trying to compete with your competitors and going through the main entrance where everybody else is going, you need to find that side entrance. And really that's just an analogy for, differentiating, finding that nerve, that underserved group of people, or that area where your competitor's product lacks, and focusing all of your energy there. And I'm going to get into all of that more about positioning. I'm getting ahead of myself here. I don't want my coffee to go cold. So the state of cold email in 2024 /N, put /N here because, we're not far away from 2025 and not a whole bunch is going to change. So for a decade, the cold outbound playbook, right, was to hire SDRs, use sales engagement tools like SalesLoft, Outreach, or Lemlist to send 50 personalized emails per day, and use big data tools like ZoomInfo to find B2B contact data. Now, how do I know this? Because I did this. I was an SDR. My first job in SaaS was as an SDR. I got paid like £40,000 a year. To literally, most of my days was just spent manually researching leads, going through LinkedIn Sales Navigator, applying filters, and manually, one by one, adding leads to Salesforce, to our CRM, using tools like ZoomInfo, Lusher. And then I would sequence these leads in Outreach, which is like a $20,000 a year sequencing tool. And every single email that was sent to leads, I had to manually click send, and I had to personalize the email, right? So I would spend so long doing this research, sending these emails, getting these leads. Most of the leads bounced because I was just guessing their emails, just to, at the end of the day, achieve like a 1% reply rate, right? Just so inefficient. And so 2 to 3 years ago, when I sort of transitioned over to the marketing agency / consultancy, all of this changed, right? Tools like Instantly and Smart Lead introduced new product capabilities to the market, namely inbox rotation and domain warming. This is a bit of a lie. They didn't introduce these to the market. They popularized them. There were other tools doing that, but really they kind of brought it to the mainstream. And their removal of seat-based pricing meant their value proposition was insanely attractive, right? And then more recently, Clay entered the market, which allows individuals to automate a big chunk of the early steps in cold outreach, such as account mapping, prioritization, research, and even personalization, right? So what does this mean? Well, now an individual can send highly targeted emails at a higher volume and at a lower cost than what previously took an entire SDR team, right? We've gone from a go-to-market motion, an outbound go-to-market motion, which typically incurred hundreds of thousands of dollars of overheads per year for a company to do, to something that can now be done for less than $500 per month, right? That's just absolutely insane. And these figures, there's so much nuance to here because it really depends on what tools you want to use, et cetera, et cetera. But I've personally done this. I have beaten entire SDR teams with a setup that costs less than $500 per month, right? If you just imagine I was getting paid £40,000 per year, a team of like 8 SDRs, that's a lot of money just in salaries. And you add all the tools and all of that kind of stuff. Just absolutely crazy, right? Like Instantly and Smartly just completely evolved the game of cold outbound, right? And so the reason why I bring this up is because it has some implications, right? Like, yes, this is good. I think overall it's a net positive, but it has had some implications that are important to understand so you can adapt, right? How most people that struggle with cold outbound today in 2024, they're the ones who have struggled to adapt. They're still using the old tools, the old methods, and they're kind of wondering why we're not getting any results, or why have our results gone down the drain. It's because they haven't adapted. They haven't done what I'm going to talk through in this video. So first implication, hard calls to action, net low results, right? So all good things come to an end. Once upon a time, it was certainly before my time, because cold email had such little sophistication, not many people were doing it. You could just get far better results. You could literally just reach out to somebody, introduce your product, and they'd want to hop on a call, right? That's just no longer the case. Now, I won't say it, never say never, right? Like, this can work. Hard call to actions, i.e. asking for a sales call in your email, it can work. You will just have a lower probability of success, right? So as more companies have adopted this new way of cold outbound, which I call cold email 3.0, inboxes have gotten busier and standing out more difficult, right? So even in the earlier days of cold email, it was tough to just pitch somebody your company and ask them to drop on a sales call, right? Because it's just hard to persuade a stranger who has never heard of you to jump on a sales call with you, right? Now imagine that today, those same prospects are getting 30, 40, 50, 60 cold emails per day. It's now extremely difficult to persuade a stranger to hop on a call with you, right? And so in my opinion, opinions loosely held, it's just not worth using hard call to actions today. Now, that's not to say it won't ever work, but you're decreasing your probability of success, right? So in this resource, I'm going to be sharing with you some ways to still generate leads and customers via cold outbound, but by going through that side entrance instead of that front entrance where everybody else is going. There's so many, the majority of people are still sending crappy emails with expensive tools, with expensive teams, asking for the prospects to jump on sales calls, right? We don't want to be going through that main entrance anymore, right? So in this resource, I'm going to be focusing on that side entrance where you're going to get far better results with far less energy inputs as well, right? And so that's the first implication. The second implication is that pitching products rarely works, right? And so again, this is due to market sophistication because there's just so many SaaS companies at the moment, right? Probably thousands of SaaS companies in the world at the moment. Very, very competitive, so many new ones being created every week. Everyone and their uncle is doing cold outbound ever since the book Predictable Revenue came out. It's very rare to hear of a SaaS company that isn't doing cold outbound. And so over time, as the market has sophisticated, just reaching out to a cold prospect and introducing your product and pitching your product has just, the impact of that has just lessened over time, right? So instead you need to distribute offers, right? The harsh truth is that nobody cares about your software product, right? Nobody wants to spend money on yet another subscription and go through the headache of learning your tool and implement it into their company, right? Companies, I'm sure I know this, and I'm sure you're the exact same, right? Like all of those subscriptions add up. You probably have, I could probably count like at least a dozen subscriptions I have to SaaS tools, right? Nobody wants to spend more money on a new tool and learn how it works, right? People just want to grow their business. They don't actually want to buy new tools, right? Or they just could be happy with their existing solution, like a current way of doing things, and they just don't see a need for a SaaS product, right? And so pitching products to cold traffic is extremely, extremely difficult. And if I could summarize why people that fail with cold outbound, why that happens, I would summarize it with this one sentence, right? Pitching products to cold traffic is extremely difficult. And most companies are just pitching their product, right? They're just asking to marry on the first date. They're using hard call to actions, and they just haven't evolved their strategy, right? So just to really hit this point home, we can look at the agency space, right? Which is if you think the SaaS industry is saturated, take a look at the agency space, which is really, really saturated. And by saturated, I don't mean that you can't succeed as an agency. I just mean there's a lot of agencies out there, very competitive, right? And so if somebody sent you an email saying, hey, we'll manage your LinkedIn ads for $3,000, that wouldn't be an attractive proposition because ad agencies are a dime a dozen, and just trust has been eroded by them. From them over-promising and under-delivering, right? If I say the word agency to you right now, what goes through your head? It's probably a negative thought. Like you're probably thinking of young people who over-promise, under-deliver. They probably learned how to grow a business on YouTube, and they have barely any skills and knowledge, and they're just going to drive your business into the ground while charging you a retainer. And when things go wrong, they probably don't care, right? That's maybe I've got some trauma from agencies, right? I used to have an agency. I'm an agency founder, but that is the general sentiment of agencies. It's not a positive one. It's because there's just so many of them that have made these marketing claims and just haven't backed it up with their product, right? If we go back to this, build a solution that effectively solves problems and fulfills the marketing claim, most agencies fail to do this, and hence why they struggle to scale. Again, I digress. So, okay, if somebody pitched that in your inbox, that wouldn't be attractive, right? They're just pitching their service. However, if they said something to the effect of, we help early stage B2B SaaS startups achieve message market fit in 90 days or less guaranteed, your ears might perk up a bit more, right? Specifically, if you are an early stage B2B SaaS company who hasn't solved message market fit, this would probably perk your ears up a bit rather than the LinkedIn ads for $3,000 a month, right? Now, this outcome, this message market fit in 90 days, that could still be delivered through LinkedIn ads, but the way it was framed to you is completely different than them pitching the service, right? They talked about the outcome. There was some specificity here where it's targeted to B2B SaaS startups. There's the sort of desired outcome here. We've got a time frame, framed far better than if they were to just pitch LinkedIn ads for $3,000 a month, right? Now, would you believe this, right? Some of you might say, well, no, this sounds scammy. Will this actually happen? Who knows, right? Kind of besides the point. The point I'm trying to make here is the way it was framed makes it more attractive to you. You know, you don't have to offer guarantees and 90 days or less and all this kind of things, but just the point I'm trying to make here is rather than, you know, pitching the product or the service in this example, you know, offers are far more attractive, right? And so in this resource, I'm also going to be sharing how you can go from pitching your product to creating no-brainer attractive offers that are going to increase your positive reply rates. Okay, so let's get into the actual activities, the actual playbook here. So step one is to get clear on your company's positioning, right? So positioning establishes your place in your market relative to competitors, okay? So it answers that what makes you different question, right? The dreaded, absolute dreaded what makes you different question, right? That prospects ask. So without strong positioning, you're another nice to have product in an already crowded market. And this can often be the most frustrating part of being a founder. I know it certainly is for me sometimes, is, you know why your product exists. You know this exciting road that lays ahead. You know, you have that 3 to 5 year vision in your mind of what your product's going to be and the impact your company is going to have on your market. But the people you speak with, your prospects, they don't quite get it as much as you do. And rightly so, right? They don't care as much as you. And so it can be a real challenge to communicate that vision accurately to them. You know, the nitty gritty details, the backstory, you know, how you got started and all this kind of stuff doesn't matter if you can't hook someone's attention and get them to listen to you, which comes through good positioning, right? Positioning, in my opinion, is like that instant light bulb moment of, oh, okay, I understand why you guys are different. You know, I get it. Okay, tell me more, right? Positioning influences the market's perception of your company, right? And I'll come on to this. If you don't influence the market's perception of your company, then something else will, right? Competitors will, or, people already have their prejudices, they already have an established perception of your company. You need to try control that and influence that. And so before we dive into the tactics of like cold outbound, it's really important to have the foundations in place. Otherwise, you have a high chance of making mistakes that will cost you, right? So if you think back to those 4 items I talked about underneath product market fit, these are the foundational stuff, right? Everyone always thinks like, what should I write inside my cold email and what tools should I use? Like that stuff is absolute table stakes. If you don't have the solid foundations in place, i.e. you know who you're targeting, you've done your qualitative research, you've developed a good value proposition, your company is positioned well. If you haven't done all of that, it doesn't matter what you say in those emails, right? And so when you have clarity on your positioning or components like your position, everything else falls into place a lot easier. I'm not going to lie to you, there is a bit of upfront effort here to really rack your brain and think about things. And then you can go on to the tactics, right? Strategy always comes before tactics. Now, not solving your positioning means you risk struggling to stand out, or even worse, achieving weak product market fit and struggling to ever achieve breakout growth, right? It's kind of something I mentioned before is when companies fail, they don't just like, it doesn't like Monday morning doesn't come round and the company just dies, right? And the founder falls dead and the money is cleared out of the bank account. Like it's a slow, painful process, right? I've worked with companies that haven't grown their revenue for like 6, 8, 9, 12 months, right? That's like what I mean here is weak product market fit. It's not just like you fall over one day and die. It's almost like a poison, weak product market fit, right? And so it's sometimes it's not immediately obvious. The revenue's still coming, you might still be breaking even, or you might be losing single digits per month, and so it doesn't bother you too much. But eventually, it's like a slow bleed out, right? To be a bit graphic there, right? And so, if you struggle to solve these foundational elements, it's really, really going to impact your growth, and you might not immediately realize it until it's too late. And so positioning is not a headline, right? It's not an email, it's not an ad, it's not like a copywriting gimmick. It's something that drives everything across your company, like including your pricing, your packaging, the product strategy, how you differentiate on the product side, and your messaging, how you communicate your value proposition, right? So positioning isn't some kind of like woo-woo thing, like it drives the entire strategy of your company. Now, some of the stuff we're about to go through, i.e. positioning, is like product marketing 101, right? This resource is not a product marketing lesson or workshop, right? I am not a product marketing manager. I'm not a product marketing expert. I know enough to get by and succeed, but this resource is not a product marketing resource, right? And so just like an FYI, like I recommend learning this separately. And of course, if you want me to cover this in a separate resource, just let me know. But I'm going to cover the basics so you know enough to go away and act on them. So primary types of positioning. So first of all, we have audience-based positioning, right? I would say this is the best option for you, unless you're like a serial entrepreneur who knows exactly what they're getting after. What I mean by that is you've maybe sold 1 or 2 companies, you're on your 3rd company or your 2nd company, and you know exactly, you've been thinking about what you're going to be doing like for the last year, 2 years, 3 years, and all we have to do is wait for time to catch up and execute. If you don't fit that persona, I would recommend going for audience-based positioning, right? And so as the name suggests, with this type of position, you begin with your audience. So this type of positioning breaks out into 2 categories. We have product-led, competition-led, right? So these are subcategories of audience-based positioning. So in product-led, you begin with a clear picture of your audience, figure out how you can solve a problem for them, and then differentiate against existing solutions, right? So figure out how you can solve a problem through them with a product, and then differentiate that product against existing solutions. Now, I use the word solutions here and not product because you're not always competing with another product, right? It just might be an existing behavior that your target audience has, or an existing manual solution, like a makeshift solution. And I'm going to give you an example of these in a sec. In competition-led, you begin with a clear picture of your audience, identify what solutions they are using currently, and then discover something you can do that existing solutions cannot. Right? So there's a slight nuance here. Now, to help you visualize this, if you want me to send this over to you, just let me know. So audience-based positioning, product-led, you know who you're targeting. Let's start with the audience. You move on to like, what can you build that this audience cares about? And then how can you differentiate against existing competitors? Competition-led, you know who you're targeting, you discover the competitors, who you're competing with, and then what can you do differently, right? So there's a slight nuance in here. Zoom out a bit. Okay, so to give you an example of product-led, audience-based positioning, okay? So you know you want to target product marketing managers, PMMs, at mid-market B2B SaaS companies. So we know who we're targeting. You discovered that gathering competitive intelligence is expensive and time-consuming. You believe aggregating and combining a contextual layer, a so what layer, to multiple data sources could give PMMs better and faster insights, right? So what can you do that this audience cares about? Competitive intelligence is typically a responsibility of a product marketing manager in a SaaS company, depending on their size. Sometimes it becomes a specialist role. And then existing competitors are expensive and focus on one data source, i.e. website changes. So existing competitive intel products. One of them is they monitor like your competitors' website changes, so you can see if they're changing their pricing, if they're changing their messaging, etc. So a potential option is to aggregate these data sources in one platform and offer orchestration capabilities, right? So just going to go through that again so it's super, super clear. So audience-based positioning, 2 subcategories of that. I've given an example of product-led audience-based positioning, right? So we know who we want to target, our audience, product marketing managers at mid-market B2B SaaS companies. What can we do that this audience cares about? One of the responsibilities they care about is competitive intel. So we believe that aggregating multiple data sources, but not just giving them the data, turning that into intelligence where it goes, so we could do this through AI, is like, okay, well, this is what this data is telling us, and here are some opportunities that you can act upon, could give them better and faster insights, right? So what could we do that this audience cares about? And then we look at existing solutions in the market. Well, a lot of the existing competitive intel solutions in the market, they only offer one data source. There's like tools that monitor website changes. There's tools that monitor like review websites. There's tools that monitor like social mentions. And so how we're going to differentiate is we're going to bring all of these data sources and aggregate them under one roof. If you're familiar with like Clay, kind of similar to what Clay does, but for competitive intel. By the way, I've completely made this up. So, excuse me if there might be some flaws in what I'm talking about, because I've just completely made this company example up. And as we get through this resource, I'm going to be using this same company to really, really drill it down. I wanted to give you real B2B SaaS examples of what I'm talking through rather than like in vague terms. I really want this to kind of settle and hit home, right? So that's an example of product-led, audience-based positioning, how we would kind of do that, okay? So like final note on this is like, why is that important? Why is positioning important? Is because you could say, when you're on calls with people, you could say, well, you know how existing competitive intel tools, you have to have one for website changes, and you have to have one for monitoring review sites, and you have to have one for social mentions. Well, what we do is we bring all of those data sources under one roof, and then also offer orchestration capabilities to actually act on those signals. Boom, the prospect's going to get it straight away. That's good positioning, okay? Moving on to competition-based positioning. So this is ideal if you deeply understand a market and have been able to identify gaps in existing products, right? And the reason being is because their weakness becomes your strength. And again, I'm going to give an example of this. So two subtypes of competition-based positioning. We have audience-led and product-led. So in audience-led, you begin with an understanding of existing products, identify a specific market segment that uses those products, and then find an area that market segment is underserved. In product-led, you begin with an understanding of existing products, identify where your product fills an underserved gap, and find a specific market segment to go after with this capability. So another visual here, again, I can send this to you. Product-led, so we know who we want to compete with because it's competition-based positioning. You uncover something that you can do differently. How can you differentiate against that competitor or those competitors? And then who's using that competitor that you can sell that product to? Audience-led, you know who you want to compete with. You discover a market segment, who's using this competitor and would care about your product. And then how can you differentiate against that competitor or those competitors? Okay, so to give you another example, and this is actually a real example that I haven't made up. And the reason why I gave this one is because I'm going to use this imaginary company throughout this resource. So 6sense is an ABM platform. This is an actual enterprise ABM software. One of its product capabilities is identifying accounts that visit your website. So it's I think I did a quick Google search. It starts at around $50,000 per year. So it's an enterprise software. Product-led, competitive, alternative. Okay, so we've identified a competitor in the market. Our B2B realized that company-level identification isn't very useful. Person-level identification is far more valuable, and so they focused here, right? So to break this down, 6sense ABM platform, one of its product capabilities is when people visit your website, it will send you a message and say, hey, somebody from Google just visited your website, right? So it's company level identification, right? Which isn't very useful, right? Because me telling you, hey, Google just visited your website isn't very useful, right? Because Google has, I don't know, how many employees? Tens of thousands of employees? I'm not really sure. And so like, it's not very useful. Who should you reach out to? And so our B2B realized this through research, right? A lot of people complain about this. And so what they did is they introduced person level identification, right? So instead of saying, hey, Google visited your website, they will say, hey, Sarah, the VP of marketing, just visited your website. Here's her email and here's her LinkedIn profile, right? That's far more valuable because then you can reach out to Sarah, right? You can reach out to LinkedIn, email Sarah and say, hey, let's have a conversation or whatever. And then to differentiate further, they have a free plan and their paid plan starts at $99 a month, right? So they've differentiated in a couple of ways. One is that they've noticed this weak capability that an existing solution has, and they've improved upon that capability. And two, they've gone to, while 6sense sort of targets mid-market enterprise, our B2B is targeting SMB and micro SMB, hence the pricing, right? So they've differentiated in a couple of ways, but just to really give a clear example of competition-based positioning, right? Competitors in the market, identify a weakness that they have, and then innovate there, differentiate in one way, all right? So you don't have to do anything crazy. It's just really being sharp and understanding your market and being able to spot those opportunities, right? And so positioning allows you to control the market's perception and gives your company an identity, right? Often the reason why companies experience growth problems is because they don't know where to focus, right? They kind of just copy competitors blindly. Or, okay, everyone has a sales tool. I'm going to build another sales tool. I'm going to build another cold email platform or something, right? Whereas, and so then they're just competing head on with existing competitors that probably have a better product, better brand affinity, better trust with the market. And that's just, you're playing a really tough game there, right? And so you can identify these small cracks of opportunity and focus all of your energy there, right? So that's positioning. All right, my coffee's definitely getting cold. Okay. So moving on to create value propositions, right? So a value proposition clearly describes how your product benefits users, right? It answers the what do I get from this question, right? Really important question. Like ultimately people don't care about your product, right? They just care about what it does for them, okay? So just to give an example, my client Instantly, the sort of case study I mentioned at the beginning, they entered one of the most competitive categories, which is email marketing, right? I think the most competitive is CRM. And so they were successful because they allowed companies to do cold email in an entirely new way for less money than anyone else was charging. So kind of similar to our B2B, where they differentiated on product. The product was far more valuable, but also on pricing, right? So it's kind of like a double whammy. Ultimately, we're in B2B, pricing does play a part. And so this just made the value proposition far more effective, okay? And so an important thing, why I bring this up is because in Instantly's case, and also our B2B, the value propositions were derived from product innovation, or I guess a more tactical is product differentiation, right? Which you could class as innovation, and just thinking differently to everyone else, right? This is really, really important to internalize. You can't just make your product cheaper. You can't just have a better cold email than your competitors, right? You have to actually back it up with a good product, right? And so this is why I've made a point that, success can't be achieved just through like marketing gimmicks. There has to be a good product to support them, and there has to be differentiation, right? And ultimately, there's just no shortcut, right? That's really the point I'm trying to make here. So just to give an example of like the importance of value propositions. So the 3 inputs required to create a value proposition. So to explain these with realistic examples, I'm going to use this imaginary product called Compet Intel, which is the example I gave above. So again, I've just made this up. I'm not affiliated with any product called this. When I was actually writing this, I thought, damn, this sounds like actually a pretty good product. So feel free to run with it and keep me updated. So the TLDR of Compet Intel is that it's a product that aggregates several competitive data points that helps you monitor competitors, create useful insights, and orchestrate marketing activities, right? So how I would break Compet Intel down into these 3 inputs required to give to build a value proposition, and I'm actually going to list out value propositions, right? The reason I did this, and it's kind of difficult to just create this product out of thin air, but I really want to hit this home. I want you to be successful. I want you to achieve message market fit and ultimately product market fit, right? And so I wanted to give you real examples of how to think through this, so you can have some takeaways. So the first input, product capabilities. So a product capability is the action or series of actions that is enabled by a feature, okay? So some are Compet Intel's capabilities: combine several competitive data sources to maximize coverage and reduce tool fatigue; monitor competitor websites for changes across pricing, jobs, messaging, and case studies; monitor reviews of competitors to understand market sentiment and spot patterns. So basically, are people saying nice things about your competitors, bad things? Trigger automated workflows that reach out to a competitor based on signals. So let's say somebody has just dropped like a negative review of your competitor, whether that be on like social media publicly or like on a review site like G2. You identify that, you spot that automatically, and then you're able to orchestrate automated outbound basically to that customer based on that negative review, right? So you can actually get them to spill the sauce and get some real competitive intelligence, right? So that's really, really valuable to someone who's handling competitive intel, because typically they do that manually. Receive real-time notifications and scheduled summaries in Slack. So, new negative review just published about competitor A, and then a monthly sort of roundup. Summarize important insights in a shareable format to distribute your company. PMMs, by definition, if a company has a PMM, they're probably at least, I'd say, 20 to 30 employees. And, the bigger you get, the more difficult communication becomes, especially in the SaaS industry. We love a silo in the SaaS industry. And so cross-department collaboration becomes a lot harder. certain departments and teams gatekeep information for whatever reason. And so, the capability here is that ensure that all of the entire company is in the loop, right? Because competitive intel isn't just a marketing thing, it's like a company strategy thing. And then final capability is identify who you're competing against through automated win-loss insights, right? So when you have a sales team, all of your sales calls are being recorded through Compet Intel, this imaginary tool. What it does is it uses those call transcripts, it monitors for keywords of competitors being mentioned, and then combines that with your CRM. Okay, you've lost a deal. Was a competitor mentioned? Yes or no? Or you've won a deal. Was a competitor mentioned? Yes or no? So you can see what competitors you're winning against and what competitors you're losing against. Again, really, really valuable. So product features then. So a product feature is the technical aspect of a product, right? So notice when I go through these, they're not going to provide much context, right? They're not going to sound sexy. They're just going to be completely worthless alone in the eyes of a buyer, right? Because they don't answer that so what question. Potential customers are always thinking, so what? Okay, what can I do with this? Why should I care? How does it benefit me, right? And features don't really give that context. So Compet Intel features, right? So native integrations with 12 competitive data providers. Call Analyzer, so that's for like this automated win-loss insights. The Workflow Builder, this one. Slack app to send you the notifications, and Intel Digest, which is this basically this one here where you can summarize important insights, right? So like if you just said to someone, our product has Intel Digest, it's like, okay, like, what can I do with that? What does that mean? All right. So that's the key distinction between product capabilities and features. Benefits then. So this is the outcome realized by the customer when they use the product, right? So important to note that these will be dependent on what buyer persona you're targeting. So whether you're targeting the end user, a champion with a company, decision maker, economic buyer, what those people care about from capabilities, features to benefits is going to change, right? And so the benefits I've given here are just general. Again, this is like product marketing 101 stuff, but the aim of this resource isn't to be a product marketing resource. It's to message market fit for cold outbound. So benefits, some general benefits of Compet Intel then. So spend less time and money managing several different competitive tools, gain an edge by spotting competitive opportunities and gaps faster, improve win rates through better competitive positioning on sales calls, enhance sales enablement with better competitive assets, increase marketing source pipeline through differentiated messaging, improve cross-team collaboration through better information sharing, make faster and smarter strategy decision based on data, right? So this kind of partly answers the so what question of the features and capabilities. It kind of rounds them off, right? And so just a quick note before we go on to how we use these three inputs to create value propositions. I want to talk quickly about benefits versus business outcomes. So, because this is a very common mistake that a lot of founders, and even if you're a marketer watching this, make. So business outcomes are typically those high-level outcomes such as revenue and productivity, right? And typically within a company, the only person who cares about business outcomes are the CEO, the board, and some CXOs, right? So like the C-level execs. Benefits are more specific and tangible, right? So ICs, individual contributors, so somebody who isn't a manager, doesn't manage people, as well as middle and often senior managers, they don't viscerally care about business outcomes, right? They care about their own goals and activities, which are more tactical, right? And so yes, like sure, these people care about how much money their company is making, how much revenue, because of job security and because, humans care about status. They want to tell their family and friends that they work at a cool company that's doing well. Yes, there is some level of care there, but ultimately people care more about, getting their promotion, which means hitting their goal, their weekly goal, monthly goal, quarterly goal, right? People care more about those things, and benefits are talking to those. They care more about like saving time on pointless, day-to-day activities, right? This is all benefits. Business outcomes is more like high level, like revenue and productivity, right? So talking too much about business outcomes can result in messaging that doesn't resonate with your target persona. For example, a sales rep is likely to care more about the 4 hours they're wasting in Salesforce every week than the company's overall revenue, right? Because the sales rep can feel those 4 hours. They can feel that when they finish the working day, their last sales call at like 6 p.m., they can really relate with that feeling of, damn, like I haven't updated Salesforce this week. I have to now go spend 2 hours updating the CRM because I have a call with my sales manager tomorrow and they're going to absolutely screw me if I don't do this, right? They can feel that. They care more about that problem is far more urgent to them than like the company's revenue target, right? So this is why we focus on those specific problems and connect our product benefits to those problems rather than talking about business outcomes, right? Again, yeah, talked about this. By the way, yeah, so if like this stuff like benefits, capabilities, features, what else have we got here? Yeah, if that stuff like the positioning, like product marketing stuff, if that's something you think you'd be interested to learn more about, let me know and I'll just do like a 101 for early stage startups because it's super important. And again, it's like the foundational stuff that everything else sits upon. I'm happy to do like a separate resource on that. So to help you visualize this, right? So business outcome, we've got company revenue. Let's go a layer deeper. What's a company's revenue made up of? Well, you've got new business, which is like new customers, you have renewals, and then you have expansion, right? Different types of revenues within a business. There might be more. Okay, layer deeper. Let's focus on new business. Okay, we have the new business target. Underneath that, how does a company reach their new business target? Okay, well, they have team quotas, right? Underneath a team quota, you have the individual quota. And then at an individual level, we have prospecting activities, their ramp up period, rep coaching, the individual sales script that the rep uses, the sales admin, like the Salesforce update in the CRM. And so we've gone from like business outcome all the way down to like the tactical problems like activities that an individual has. And so in the case, this sales rep, these are really the things that they kind of care about down here, not so much up here, right? So you just, the takeaway here is just to be more specific, really dig deeper to find those problems that your target persona has. And again, remember, it depends what persona they are, what problems you need to look for. The further you go up in a business, the further you get close to business outcomes. Okay, then, so converting these inputs, product capabilities, features, benefits, converting those into value proposition. So basically bridging the product capability to the benefit. So a short, simple framework to think about value propositions. This is not exclusive. There's many ways to communicate value props, but this is just a simple framework to use. So I help persona solve problem through capability/feature so you benefit. So I'm going to go through 3 variations again. My goal here is just to make everything sort of as clear as possible so this benefits you. But just like an FYI, these value propositions, these aren't something you would directly communicate to people. It's really just an exercise for you to bring everything together. How you communicate it to people, now we're getting into the realms of like copywriting, right? So don't worry about brevity, about them being as succinct and as punchy and as sounding as cool as possible. Really, this is like product marketing stuff, creating value propositions, how you actually communicate it in your emails and your ads on your website and stuff like that. That's copywriting. So variation 1 of a value proposition, just to give you some variants here. So I help PMMs within small marketing teams at B2B SaaS companies solve internal information sharing bottlenecks through automated competitive intel digests so you can communicate competitive intel opportunities better to team members and leadership, right? So that was a bit wordy, right? But we've done the framework. I help personas in B2B SaaS companies. So again, being a bit more specific, you don't have to do that. Solve problem, which is internal information sharing bottlenecks through automated competitive intel digests so that you can communicate CI opportunities better to team members and leadership, right? So following the framework here, right? So the problem we're focusing on here is the information sharing bottlenecks. Benefit is communicating competitive intel opportunities better to team members and leadership. Variation 2 then, so same persona. I help PMM solve manual intel collection through outreach campaigns that are automatically triggered based on negative sentiment signals and contact to competitors' customers to arrange interviews so you can spot competitive opportunities more efficiently. Again, quite wordy, but that doesn't matter. So problem is manual intel collection. How that problem is solved is through basically automated outreach campaigns based on negative sentiment signals. And then actually there's orchestration here, so actually contacting the customers. And then the benefit is spotting competitive opportunities more efficiently, right? Because collecting competitive intel is manual, right? Typically what you'll see is people reaching out. Maybe you've had this happen to yourself, but typically PMMs responsible for competitive intel is they'll reach out to competitive customers and like offer them gift cards to hop on calls and that kind of stuff. What we're doing here is we're automating that process, right? So the benefit is doing it more efficiently. Variation 3 then, so I help PMMs reduce closed loss rates against competitors through dynamic competitor battle cards that give sales reps bite-sized insights based on recent data so they can position your product better in deals and have the right talk tracks, right? So a lot of the language I'm using here is it's jargon, as in if you're not a PMM, if you're not if you're not familiar with competitive intel, if you're not in the SaaS industry, some of these words might not make sense, but they absolutely will make sense to a PMM, right? Which is kind of understanding your persona, right? So closed loss rates, problem, basically losing deals to competitors. How we change that is through dynamic competitor battle cards that are based on recent data, right? So battle cards are basically sales enablement asset that you give sales reps so that they have the right talk track. So when a competitor comes up in a deal, they know the right things to say. They know how to steer the conversation in a way that positions the product as better than the competitors, right? So this is all like sales enablement stuff. Okay, so note, none of these value propositions mention revenue, right? None of these I'm like, I help PMMs make more money, increase their company's revenue, right? They don't care about that. Yeah, sure, they care about it in some way, but they care more about their day-to-day activities. They care more about hitting their OKRs so they get a promotion, so they get their bonus at the end of the year, right? Your target personas care more about those things, okay? And so, with these like value props in the early stages, you won't have complete confidence, right? At the moment, I don't know which one of these is going to resonate more with PMMs, right? But it's important to have all these different variations and then test them, which is what we're going to come on to at the end of this resource. So exercise for you to complete, whether you want to pause this now and do it, whether you want to do it at the end of the video, but it's really, really important that you do this. And again, just to like, a common mistake I see founders make is they just pay lip service to everything. Oh yeah, I already know that. I've already done that. That doesn't matter to us. That's not relevant to us. I can assure you this is relevant and it's super, super important. It's like why writing increases clarity of thought, because when you write, it forces you to think about what you're saying. It forces you to be succinct. It forces you to articulate your thoughts in a proper way. And it's the exact same with this, right? By actually listing out your product capabilities, it forces you to think about them. It forces you to think, actually, are these any good? Like, should we be, introducing new capabilities? And actually making the logical connection between features and the capabilities, the so what, an actual logical connection. So, okay, well, how does this actually help people? Are these benefits specific enough, or am I, being too vague? Can I go a layer deeper? Can I go a layer deeper? What persona is this relevant to? If you write this down, it's actually going to force you to think about these things. And then finally, when you have those three inputs, combine them together to create value propositions using this simple framework here, right? So whether you want to pause the video now or do it at the end, but really, really important that you list these out, because what we have here, we're going to use them in the next section to create those offers that are going to help your cold outbound campaigns perform better. So that's it. We need the inputs to create those. So just like some questions, answers here. How do you determine product benefits? The simple and unsexy answer to this is just by doing more customer development activities, right? So forming hypotheses, everything here is hypothesis, is like, okay, PMMs want to, reach out to competitor customers more efficiently. They struggle with internal information sharing. They want dynamic competitor battle cards. Like, this is all theory at the moment, and even more so because this is an imaginary company I made up, right? And so how do you know what benefits you should talk about and you should include and what product you should build? Simple answer is just speak with more of your target market, right? Qualitative research. It takes time, it's unsexy, but it's critical to your success, right? It's that foundational stuff that people pay lip service to and think they're too important, too big. They don't have enough time to do, but really it's the most important thing in your business, speaking to customers, right? The aim is to be so entrenched in your market that like you're speaking the language of your customers. Like you could give like a presentation to a group of your target personas and they would think you're one of them. Really, that's the goal to be here, the goal to achieve here, right? Because when you understand your target audience and the problems they have, then you can build a product that solves those problems, okay? Otherwise, you risk heading into the wrong direction. So Side note, in Growth SaaS, we basically created a method called Market Mastery, which is all about qualitative research, competitive research, and basically finding those nerves in your market that then you can go on to hammer with your messaging and your position, etc. Right. So one of the modules we talk about is the voice of customer research. How do I know what benefits to prioritize? So through research, because people might talk about a certain thing they care about more frequently than other things, but also through experimentation, which we're going to cover at the end of this. So that's value propositions. Okay, now we're going to convert those value propositions into offers and assets. So now we're getting on to like the tactical stuff about how to succeed with cold outbound, but notice how all of this stuff before it is what matters most. Okay, so create offers and assets. So when doing outbound, you are selling to cold traffic, right? This means the people you're contacting likely don't know, like, or trust you, right? And this is why cold outbound is so tough. This is why pitching cold traffic is extremely difficult, and why most companies fail at it, because it's the ultimate stress test, right? Putting something in front of somebody who you've never met, they don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you, is the ultimate stress test, right? And it's a forcing function for your entire business, because it forces you to iterate your product, your message, your positioning, so that what you're putting in front of people is attractive, right? So that's why if you can nail like cold outbound, it's a really good indicator, because then, everything else becomes a lot easier, right? There's nothing harder than trying to convince a cold stranger to buy your product, right? And then combine this with the fact that in 2024, you're competing with 30, 40, 50 other people who are sending landing in your prospects inbox every day, right? That's why we want to create offers, attractive offers and assets, right? We've already covered hard call to actions, not effective, pitching product, not effective. You want to create attractive offers, okay? And if you can just nail this concept of creating offers rather than just like pitching products, going in that side entrance rather than the main entrance, I assure you will be in like the top 1% of B2B operators. This is something fundamentally the B2B SaaS industry just really, really struggles with. And I think it's a symptom, an old relic of that growth at all costs era, where it's fine. Let's just throw money at problems. It doesn't matter if we're paying, if our CAC payback is 24 to 36 months. It doesn't matter. We've got money. We'll just raise more money, right? And so it just caused B2B operators to be lazy, right? Because they had that crutch, which was investors' money. That's not the case anymore, right? And so like you're really going to be on the edge, ahead of the game, if you can nail this stuff. Okay, so formulating offers. So what is an offer, right? An offer is what the prospect gets, right? Whereas a product is how the offer is facilitated, right? So as I mentioned, in B2B SaaS, we're way too obsessed with the product and not obsessed with what the customer actually wants, right? Which is a solution that works, that generates results, right? So example, an offer could be, I will give you 50 free leads based on your ICP, whereas a product, how that offer is facilitated would be a B2B data tool, right? So by itself, B2B data tool, that doesn't sound sexy, okay? Like I don't care about the B2B data tool. I want the outcome that it gives me, right? It's like the only reason you use a cold email software, or the only reason you use LinkedIn, for example, is so you can get in front of your customers, right? So you can book calls and so you can acquire more customers efficiently, right? You care more about the outcome it gives you, right? So again, to hammer this point home, what sounds like a more attractive proposition? I built a B2B data tool that helps you find 20% more leads, or I've created a list of 50 decision makers based on your ideal customers. Do you mind if I send them over for free? Right, this is going to win every single day, right? Because that's why people would use your tool, right? To get the leads that match their ICP that they could potentially convert to customers. Okay, so just like an example of like why an offer is more attractive to product, especially just in general, but especially with cold traffic, right? Because nobody cares about your product, right? They just care about what you can do for them. So breaking this down then. So the ingredients of a good outbound offer, right? So first of all, has to be related to a specific problem that your target audience has. This is why foundational stuff, actually understanding your target audience. Like how can you create a good offer if you don't know what problems it's related to, right? So that's why you can't skip the qualitative research piece. A unique capability. So ideally, there's a unique product capability or method that is used to generate the results. Otherwise, it's just not going to be that attractive, right? Because otherwise they can just get it elsewhere. So this is really important in competitive markets where trust has eroded and buyers have built a tolerance to claims, right? So at Grow SaaS, my consultant business, our unique method is the efficient growth protocol, right? It's a method that we've developed that is based on the new way to grow a SaaS company, right? And it's worked. It works successfully, right? And we've got proof to back that up. This is far more attractive than saying, hey, we do consulting, which technically we fit into that bucket, right? But nobody cares about consulting. Like, there's 1,000 people out there that do consulting. People care about a proven method to get results, right? Which is the efficient growth protocol, right? In SaaS, for Instantly, my client, their unique mechanisms or unique capabilities were unlimited sending, inbox rotation, and domain warming, right? Instantly didn't come out and say, hey, we're another cold email tool. We're a bit cheaper than the other cold emails. Or our cold email tool, allows you to, they focused on their differentiated capabilities. Okay. Super, super important. Again, going back to the other point, they didn't just create a nice website and in their emails, they said better things than their competitors were saying. Fundamentally, they had a better product, a differentiated product, which was unlimited sending, inbox rotation, so they could send more emails, so they can preserve deliverability, and domain warming, which again improve deliverability as well, so you can land more in the primary inbox than the spam folder, right? Nobody else was really doing this, right? So they had a differentiated product. They had these unique capabilities, right? So that's why they were able to grow so fast, because they had an attractive offer. Quick time to value, so friction is minimized. So the prospect can derive value from your offer as soon as possible. So like removing friction. So handing something to prospects on a plate is going to have a far faster time to value than having them, jump on a call or submit a form, etc. Right? The more friction you can remove, the better. I will caveat that by saying, although have the risk of going off topic, sometimes friction is good, right? But that's more of an efficiency thing. Like say if you're having a bunch of inbound demos, but a lot of those demos are unqualified. That's where adding friction becomes a good idea, asking qualification questions, right? But in the context of a good outbound offer, minimize friction. And then finally, ingredients of a good outbound offer, risk is minimized for the prospect, right? So the best way to achieve this is by your offer being free. However, can also be achieved through money back guarantees and proof of concepts. Really depends on, like, an offer is just, there's so many nuances to that. Ultimately, an offer being free is the best. However, there are other ways depending on the offer you have. Okay, so ingredients of a good outbound offer. So actually transforming your value proposition to offers and assets then. So in the context of B2B SaaS outbound, there is some overlap with offers and assets, right? So if we look at agencies, so service-based businesses, you can offer free human labor as a front-end offer of your paid services, right? So there's kind of like that can be an offer. It's not necessarily an asset. You could literally say, well, I will work for free, or I will do this thing for free, right? That you can just give them free human labor, which is attractive, right? Because human labor is expensive. However, that's more difficult, although not impossible in B2B SaaS, because typically how the outcome of your product is delivered in SaaS it's facilitated through software, which isn't a human, right? In marketing agencies, in an agency, the outcome is delivered through human labor. It's delivered by people, right? And so that's why it's a bit more difficult to give free human labor away in B2B SaaS, although that's not always the case because not all B2B SaaS companies are the same. And so an alternative method in B2B SaaS is by giving away information, right? So people are always looking to gain an edge. And so your offer can be just free information. Like this resource I've created for you right now, this is me giving you information for free, right? But really, really important that your information is of the highest quality, right? Otherwise it won't work. Don't just send a blog post or some crappy lead magnet you created. Has to be high quality information, right? Like this resource I'm recording here, I don't know how long it's going to be. I think we're on an hour and a half so far. It's taken me probably dozens of hours to consolidate this and put it into a framework and then record it and everything, right? I've put a lot of effort and time into this. And I hope that it's going to be valuable to you, right? Rather than if I just it was just short and sharp, like 20-minute video, just probably wouldn't be enough detail and you probably wouldn't find as much value in it, right? So your information has to be high quality. So some offer formats that work well then, audits, proprietary market research, internal SOPs. So if you're not familiar with SOP, it's standard operating procedure. So basically a method for doing things, right? So it's kind of, sometimes it could be part of the intellectual property of your business, right? And so why internal SOPs are attractive is because it's kind of like the secret of how you do something, a method of doing something, typically not public knowledge. And so it's far more attractive than if they could just find it on, YouTube or something. Guides or free deliverables relevant to your product, for example, lead lists, reports, etc. Right? So these are all offer formats that work well. Now, again, to make it super clear, here's how I might turn the previous value propositions that we created for Compet Intel into offers, right? So the problem I'm targeting, internal information sharing bottleneck / competitor visibility. A potential offer we could create for this problem is I will create a free competitive intelligence digest based on one of your top competitors, right? So imagine somebody sent you an email or a message or something like that and was like, hey, would you be down for me creating you a free competitive intelligence digest based on one of your top competitors, right? That's an attractive offer. You're probably not going to say no to that. It's free. It could give you insights that could make you look good in front of your team members or your leadership, or it could help you advance your company. It's a far more attractive proposition rather than somebody saying, hey, I have this competitive intelligence product. Do you want to start a free trial or do you want a demo, right? That's what we're trying to do here. Now, how this relates to the product, which is super, super important, your offer has to always relate back to the value proposition of your product. Otherwise, people are going to say yes, and they're just never going to become customers, is because it's related to a feature that the product has, right? Which is the Intel Digest, right? So they see value in the offer. Ideally, if your product is good, it gives them a bit of an edge. And then they go, wow, okay, we actually want this in our business. We want to implement it. And then that's what leads them to buying your product, right? So hopefully you're seeing the connection here is the problem that your audience has, turning your value proposition into an offer, and then that connects to your product and ideally, positions your product as a good solution that this person would be interested in buying, right? So it's just about framing it in a different way. Problem I'm targeting. So a second variation. So manual intelligence collection and low response rates to interview requests. So a potential offer here is I will create a free sentiment report based on one of your top competitors, along with a list of customers that have recently expressed dissatisfaction, right? So basically imagine I could provide you with a report and say all right, these are your top 3 competitors. Here are some positive and negative things that people have said about these competitors recently on social media, on review sites, in communities. And here are the customers that said those things, so you can reach out to them and dig deeper into the specifics, right? That's really attractive because it's going to give you an edge. It's going to help the PMM look good in front of leadership. It's going to help the company advance, right? And how it links to the product is because it's related to capabilities that the product actually has. And so if they see value in this offer, they're going to be the leadership could be great. How do we get one of these every week or every month, right? And so we're not just giving out a simple checklist related to competitive intel. We're giving them an offer that is attractive, but also positions the product as a good solution. To really hit it home, give you a third option. So problem I'm targeting, high close lost rates when against competitors. So losing deals to competitors. Potential offer here. I will create a free competitor battle card based on several recent data points that will give you bite-sized insights and recommend talk tracks on a top competitor. Right, so this is quite wordy. Again, these aren't things you would directly say. It's just the actual offer, how you would say it in a cold email, for example. That's, you can edit that. It comes to copyright. But the point being, so you're giving them a free competitor battle card, right? Again, how this relates to the product is because this is an actual feature that your product has. So, right, so we're framing a feature that our product has in a way that's an attractive offer to somebody. Again, I'm not saying 100% of people will say yes to this, but this is far more attractive than just trying to pitch your product, right? So hopefully we're making the logical connection here. Okay, so an exercise for you. Again, most of this, the real benefit here for you is actually putting this into practice, right? So here's how to brainstorm offers and assets for your product. So I believe the most simple way to think about this is to list out the activities that are related to your target persona's job to be done, right? So as a recap, job to be done can be described as the jobs your target persona wants to accomplish. Your product is then hired to perform one of or many of these jobs, right? So jobs to be done framework. So a job to be done could be, I want to save time on collecting and sharing competitive intelligence so that I can enable our sales team better and keep leadership informed without it being a full-time job, right? This could be a job that a PMM hires your product to do, right? So what are the activities related to this job to be done? Well, identifying and speaking with competitor customers, creating sales enablement materials, training sales teams on competitive positioning, creating competitive intelligence reports and sharing them internally, managing existing competitive intelligence tools, right? These are all the activities related to that job to be done. And so then, okay, well, what offers and assets can we create related to those activities? We could give a list of competitor customers that recently expressed dissatisfaction. We could give them a free competitor report or battle cards. We could give them an internal SOP and templates for briefing and training sales team on competitive matters. So taking that competitive intelligence and basically repackaging it in a way that is suitable to brief the sales team so it can actually be applied in the sales process, right? So again, trying to make it super, super clear here how we're like actually getting to your outcome here, which is basically turning your value proposition into good offers and asset ideas, right? And this is applicable for any type of B2B SaaS product. You know, you just need to get clear on the jobs to be done, list out the activities, and then the offers and assets should be clear. Just like side note, if this is something you're personally struggling with, just give me a message with like your ideas, what you think would be a good asset or what you're having a problem with. Just shoot me a message on my socials and, you know, I'll get back to you with some help. Okay, so for you to complete, then list out your target personas, jobs to be done, and then turn these into offers and assets. So, you know, pause the video or do this afterwards. So when should I add done for you elements? So see in one of these, like there's human effort involved here, right? As in like you have to actually go and create these deliverables to give to the prospect, right? I would recommend, if possible, do this anytime you can, right? Because typically that's going to be the most valuable, going to create the most valuable offer, right? The more, it's not so absolute, but the more, the valuable offers are just going to take more effort. That's just kind of what it takes to stand out, right? And why this is good is because most of your competitors are going to be too lazy to do this, right? They're still going to be sending a bunch of emails to prospects asking for them to jump on sales calls and pitch in their product features. Most people are going to continue to go for that main entrance, right? So if you're willing to put in the extra effort, you know, to think about framing your product's capabilities or your value proposition in an offer and, you know, put a bit more effort in to actually create those offers and share them with prospects, you know, you're going to have a higher probability of succeeding, right? So, you know, if you're pre-product market fit, honestly, I just do it. You know, you're going to be successful. Okay, so moving on to experimentation then. So how do we actually put this stuff into practice? Okay, so testing variables. So if you followed this resource correctly so far, you should have product capabilities, features, benefits. You've then created value propositions from those three inputs, and then you've turned those value propositions into offers and assets. So you will need to test several iterations of these before you solve product market fit. In simple terms, just to make it like really clear, this will not be easy, right? You could follow this playbook and it's still going to be difficult. It's still going to take time. It's still going to take a lot of work, right? That's just what it takes to be successful. And so that's like a point to hit home, right? Depending on how many outbound emails you're sending, you should aim to test at least one new campaign per week, just to give you an idea of the kind of effort that's going to be involved in this, right? Because I speak with people all the time. They're like, cold outbound didn't work. And, you know, they have like 3 campaigns over the last 6 months, right? You need to be like ruthlessly executing on this, right? So just like a rough ballpark testing one new campaign per week. If you can do more, do that. But how much you test is really going to be dependent on your sending volume, because if you have like one campaign but you're only doing like 300 sends a week, well, that's just not going to be enough statistical significance, right? So if you have high volume, it means you can test in shorter intervals, right? Which is kind of what you want. Less volume, your intervals are going to be bigger. So one campaign per week, just kind of like a ballpark to aim for. Now, when I say new campaign, that can either be a net new campaign, which is where you're testing a net new variable. So that could be like testing a new lead list, going after a different persona, or maybe putting an entirely different offer in front of a prospect, right? That is a net new campaign where you're kind of taking a bigger swing, and generally this is going to have a bigger impact. The outcomes could be exponentially better. Or you could have a new campaign that is iterative, which is where you make a slight adjustment, like a 1-2 degrees to the left or right, and this is where you sort of adjust an existing variable. So this could be like small copy changes, right? Changing the subject line, framing the offer in a slightly different way, having a different call to action in your email. These are like iterative changes, and you do these when you want an efficiency gain. So you've found a winning offer, you've found a winning market segment, you've got a good message, but you're just trying to squeeze more juice out of your campaigns. That's when I would recommend the iterative changes. Until then, take big swings, right? Because you've got nothing to lose. Okay, so to demonstrate how you might test these variables within a campaign template, I've put some examples below. Yeah, just again, like FYI, these are for demo purposes, right? So these would be refined in practice, but I didn't want to just like talk in vague terms to you guys and like expect you just to figure it out. I want to make it completely like crystal clear, black and white. So like this actually lands. So in the video I mentioned at the very beginning, that's where I go into email copywriting frameworks that you can use. Here, I'm just showing you what these variables would look like inside of an email. So template we're running with, hey name, some relevancy or generic statement that you can do with generative AI or just like mass personalization. You would test the variable here. We'll then have like some kind of social proof, like a 1-sentence case study or proof, and then like a relevant low friction call to action, then signature. So variation 1, just to show you here. So, hey Dave, just saw the comment you made on Will's LinkedIn post about competitive intel. So there's a reason for reaching out. I'm not saying this is a great one. Again, just example's sake. You could do this with something like Clay, where you monitor certain people's LinkedIn posts, look for comments, scrape the engagements, run them through an ICP filter, and then reach out. So the variable we test in, would you be open to a free report that analyzes your top competitors? Quick research tells me competitor 1 or competitor 2 might be relevant, right? So we're putting the offer in front of them. This is just showing you how you would slot those offers into your cold outbound campaigns. Now, where we've put competitor 1 or competitor 2, you could also generate these with AI, right? And so this is just going to make the offer far more attractive, right? Imagine if somebody emailed you and they're like, hey, do you want a free report on competitor A and competitor B? You'd be like, how the hell do they know my competitors? Of course I want that report, right? It's just going to have a higher probability of succeeding. I'm not going to go into how you would get those, but you can do this through Clay quite easily. And then again, just like boosting up again, it combines 12 data sources and gives a summary of opportunities that could be useful. If I'm being honest, I've gone against my own template here because I made changes to these yesterday from the internal playbook. But I would add like a case study here or social proof as well. So like maybe mention a company that they might know, like basically name drop, like company A was able to XYZ, some kind of benefit, right? So add some social proof again, because it's just going to increase the probability of them replying. Like I said at the beginning of this video, it's easy to make claims. It's harder to back them up and show receipts. And so always try to use social proof or case study as much as possible. The aim here isn't to give you an exhaustive cold email template. It's just to show you how you would implement the offers into your cold campaigns. So that's variation 1. We're testing the free report, right? The offer that we created before. Variation 2, basically the same email, but we're testing a different offer. So would you be open to me sharing a free report that summarizes recent sentiment of your top competitors? Quick research tells me competitor A or B. I'll include a list of customers who recently expressed dissatisfaction. They might be good to interview for competitive insights. So slightly different offer. It's kind of similar because it's like a report, but under the surface, it's actually using a different product feature, right? And then we're talking about the customer list as well, right? So we're testing a different offer. Maybe people would find this more valuable than offer one because, wow, okay, you're actually going to give me the list of customers who I can reach out to, right? And then there's two variations, okay? So inside your cold outbound campaigns, this is how you could test the different offers, right? So these would be in completely separate campaigns running alongside each other. I'd probably start with like 3 or 4 if possible. Depending on, again, how many leads you have, run them for a few days and then see what the data tells you. So some questions and answers for this section. How to approach asset creation. This is going to depend on what the asset is, like, how do you create these? If it's something you must create every time, such as like a Loom video or a report, which would be the case for these, this would be like, you'd have to create this with your product. Only create these after you get the yes, right? So only create this report for a prospect after they replied to your email and said, yes, please send it over. Then you go create the report. Don't create unnecessary work for yourself. Always try to systemize where possible. Yeah. So like ideally you could just pop their name into your product and it's going to create the report automatically. If not, try to create some kind of SOP that you can follow every single time to predictably create this asset. You don't want to be spending your entire week creating these assets, but always ensure there's some element of personalization, right? For this, there of course has to be personalization because we're talking about their competitors, but don't just create like a blanket lead magnet and just send it to everyone. Always want to try personalize it to the prospect as much as possible. And the reason why, easy, right? Save time and cognitive load. You want to turn this into a system that can you can predictably get responses and book sales calls or get trials to your product. And to create a system, you need to reduce friction, right? So that's why we do that. Okay. And then, any questions on like how to do this like personalization stuff that I mentioned here? There's tools out there that can do this. If you want a separate video on how to do that, give you some examples, maybe give you some templates that you can like implement and just kind of work. Just again, comment on this video and I'll get that done for you. So for you to complete, create multiple variations for each offer/asset you've brainstormed. And just remember, try these sort of small changes, but don't be afraid to take big swings, right? Personally, for my cold outbound, the most success has always been seen when I've just take big swings, where I've just kind of gone completely left field and try something new, right? So don't be afraid to do that. There's nothing to lose. You're an early stage startup, what's the worst that can happen, right? Obviously don't be unethical, but you've got nothing to lose if you're an early stage startup. Okay then, so measuring success. How do you know if your campaigns, your cold outbound campaigns are actually working, right? So one of the benefits of cold outbound just in general, right, is its fast feedback loop, is the feedback you get from the market, right? I don't really know many other channels that are as good at cold outbound as this, right? Paid ads. Typically, I say with paid ads, don't expect anything good in the first 30 days. You're going to get data 100%. You'll get data with paid ads within 24 hours, but it's not necessarily good data. Your conversions will be quite expensive. With content, it takes ages to get it running. When it's up and running, it's one of the greatest feedback loops, but from a cold start, really, really tough. Cold outbound, within a week, you have really good feedback. It's cost effective, high scalability, and an extremely fast feedback loop, right? Hence why I'm even creating this resource in the first place, right? And so when you're doing cold outbound, there's a few metrics you should take a look at that are just going to give you some indication of whether your campaigns are going well or not. Now, with metrics, with benchmarks, it's always tough because I don't like to talk in absolutes. There's so many factors that play into this. And, you take 5 companies, all of their metrics are going to look different. But, I don't, with these videos I do, with this content I do, I always want it to be actionable and to give you some kind of indication. And so here are just some benchmarks that typically I would try to aim for in cold outbound. So first metric is reply rate. So a good reply rate sits between 3 to 5%. This is heavily going to depend on many factors such as your lead list, who you're targeting. Marketing and sales professionals and founders are more likely to respond to a cold email than, say, a CTO or a software engineer or a chief information officer, right? Like technical people. Your offer, of course, is going to play a huge factor. Social proof, do you have evidence of your claims working? Brand affinity, do people know who you are, etc. Now, if you have a low reply rate, to improve it, try to adjust the offer, the case study you're using, or a lead list. Again, this is why there's so much more to succeed in with cold outbound than just like good copywriting. Like, do you actually have evidence that your product works? Do you have good brand affinity, etc. Positive reply rate then. So of course, not everyone who replies is gonna have a positive reply. So a good positive reply sits between 15 to 30% of replies, or 0.25% of leads contacted. So in numerical terms, that's around one positive reply per 400 leads contacted. You might think this number is high. It's not for 2024. That's just the state of cold outbound. If you look at paid ads, for example, like a 1% click-through rate on paid ads is good, and then only a small percent of those are actually going to go convert, right? So it's more about like demand generation. To improve your positive reply rate, adjust your offer, case study, or lead list. And then positive reply to meeting booked. You should be aiming to book a meeting with 25% of positive replies. If this number is lower, it could be a sign that your offer, when accepted, isn't positioning your product as well, right? Not everyone who says yes to your report or your audit or whatever you're offering them is going to turn into a customer or an opportunity. That's just the way it is. And so to improve your positive reply to meeting booked rate, again, adjust your offer, right? You're seeing a pattern here, right? A lot of this comes down to your offer. Like, is the thing you're pitching to people attractive or not? Also, just like from a reply to meeting book like opportunity perspective, go omni-channel, right? Don't just focus on email, connect with the person on LinkedIn. If they've got their mobile number in the signature, give them a call. All of these things are going to have a huge impact. Don't just be so tunnel vision to cold email. Although I know this video is about cold email, this is just one piece of the growth puzzle. And so if we were to look at this from like a funnel perspective, reply rate of, feel free to save this, 3 to 5%, positive reply rate between 15 to 30%, and then positive reply rate to meeting between 20 to 50%, right? If your campaigns can achieve these metrics, scale the hell out of them until things break, right? People are just generally scared of scaling, right? It's like in paid ads. Like if you have a profitable CPA, keep increasing your budget until that thing breaks, until you hit diminishing returns, until you hit like a CAC payback that you're not happy with. Until that point, scale the hell out of it, right? Because typically there's only windows of opportunity, right? Like 2 to 3 years ago, if you were applying this playbook, you were ahead of the curve. Today, a lot of people are applying this playbook, right? And so over the last 2 to 3 years, people have really been capitalizing on that opportunity, right? So don't be afraid to scale. Be on the offense, right? You always need to be playing on the offense because, markets sophisticate and those winners of opportunity close. Right, so to round this document off, I think it's been a bit of a long one. I hope it's been valuable so far. Just to summarize, because we've been through a lot. So message market fit is when your message aligns with the needs and desires of your market. Achieving strong message market fit can help you win in competitive categories. Cold outbound continues to be one of the most effective channels for early stage startups due to its low cost, high scalability and fast feedback loop, but you should avoid using hard CTAs and directly asking for sales calls. Create value propositions by listing your products, that should be your features, capabilities and benefits. Turn these value propositions into attractive offers and assets that are related to your target persona's jobs to be done. Experiment with different variations of value props, offers and assets to find what resonates, right? That's a summary of this document. Now, if you made it this far, thank you for sticking with me. If you're an early stage B2B SaaS founder who wants to rapidly solve product market fit without needing to raise external investment, feel free to check out growsas.com. We exclusively help early stage founders find traction and build repeatable growth by giving you the exact protocol used to help a startup grow from 0 to 20 million ARR in 3 years and help a 21-year-old achieve a $2 million exit in 2 years without giving away a single piece of equity. And we work with you every single step of the way, right? One of this document I've gone through, this is one of the playbooks that we help founders implement into their business, but we actually work with them to implement it into their business, which is kind of the important part, right? You can sit and watch the videos like this all day, but really it comes down to the execution and having, a subject matter expert in your corner. We like to refer to ourselves as like a sparring partner, somebody who keeps you accountable, somebody who, actually works with you to get the job done. So what you can expect if you work with us: get clear on your market, its problems, and the most profitable ones to solve. Develop a message that speaks to these problems and positions you against existing solutions. Rapidly validate and iterate your message without expensive tactics. How to pick, validate, and scale a marketing channel. How to improve product growth with your PLG and build a sales process. My co-founder is on the sales side. Turn your company from constant fires and chaos to a repeatable engine that maximizes enterprise value and can be sold for a healthy revenue multiple. Most founders we work with want to eventually sell their company, and that's what really we help them work towards. And so I said this at the beginning, right? The way to grow a SaaS company looks very, very different to what it did 3, 5, 10 years ago, where it was a seller's market. Everyone was selling software to each other. Everyone was hitting quota. People could raise millions of dollars and brute force it into product market fit. Basically venture capital was free. That's no longer the case, right? And so we've invested 100% of our focus into the playbook to grow a SaaS company that is relevant today, right? That's where our experience lies. So hope you found this video valuable. If you want access to anything I've talked through, if you have any questions, please give me a direct message. I always like speaking to people that consume this stuff. Right. See you on the next one.